By the age of 26, Hugh Grosvenor had inherited more than £9 billion, and a level of power few people ever see, let alone understand. On August 9, 2016, following his father's sudden death from a heart attack at the family's Abbeystead estate in Lancashire, Grosvenor did not simply become one of Britain's wealthiest men. He became the steward of a dukedom stretching back nearly 1,000 years, a position shaped as much by silence and discretion as by money itself. Gerald Cavendish Grosvenor, the 6th Duke of Westminster, had been taken ill at the estate and rushed to Royal Preston Hospital, where he died that same afternoon at 64 years of age. The transition of power was immediate and absolute. Behind the manicured streets of Mayfair and the controlled grandeur of Eaton Hall lies a dynasty built not on spectacle, but on patience. And in that patience, power accumulates. The Grosvenor story begins long before London became the financial capital it is today. The family's name derives from Norman French, Le Grosvenor, often translated as chief huntsman, and their ancestors arrived in England with William the Conqueror in 1066. From the beginning, proximity to power defined their survival. Sir Richard Grosvenor was created Baronet of Eaton in January 1622, formalising a status the family had cultivated for centuries. Yet conquest alone did not build the Grosvenor fortune. The real foundation was laid in 1443, when Ralph Grosvenor married Joan, heiress to the Eaton estate in Cheshire. With that marriage came Eaton Hall, a property that would remain the family's seat for more than 5 centuries, and anchor their influence through civil war, religious upheaval, and political revolution. The estate would eventually expand to encompass over 10,000 acres of countryside, formal gardens, parkland, and working farmland, producing 32 million litres of milk annually. While other noble families rose and fell, the Grosvenors expanded quietly. During the 16th and 17th centuries, they invested in coal, lead, and stone mining across North Wales. The freehold of mines and minerals fueled their fortune, generating returns substantial enough to absorb catastrophe when the family backed Charles I during the English Civil War and paid heavy fines after the Royalist defeat. Where lesser dynasties collapsed under political miscalculation, the Grosvenors waited. The most consequential moment in Grosvenor history came not on a battlefield or in Parliament, but through marriage. In 1677, Sir Thomas Grosvenor, 3rd Baronet, married Mary Davies. She was 12 years old. The daughter of a London scrivener, Mary was not aristocracy. But what Davies brought with her was not prestige, it was land. Roughly 500 acres of marshy terrain west of London, the manor of Ebury, north of the Thames. At the time, it was considered marginal property, swampland with little immediate value. Within a century, it would become Mayfair and Belgravia. The Grosvenors left the land largely untouched until the 1720s, when Sir Richard Grosvenor, 7th Baronet, who would be created Baron Grosvenor in 1761, began developing the northern portion around Grosvenor Square. As London expanded westward, the value of the land multiplied exponentially. A few generations later, in the 1820s, their focus moved south to what is now Belgravia, developing Eaton Square, Chester Square, and streets that would become home to 17 foreign embassies. As London expanded, the Grosvenors did not sell. They leased. Streets, squares, embassies, and mansions rose on Grosvenor land, generating a steady flow of income that eclipsed their rural estates. The family became landlords to empire, shaping London's most exclusive districts while remaining largely invisible within them. Today, the Grosvenor Group controls approximately 300 acres in Belgravia and Mayfair, property that includes some of the most expensive real estate on earth. It was old money in its purest form, ownership without presence, power without performance. By the 19th century, the Grosvenors were among the richest families in Britain. Sir Richard Grosvenor, 7th Baronet, became Earl Grosvenor in 1784, and Viscount Belgrave the same year under George III. The title Marquess of Westminster was bestowed upon Robert Grosvenor, the 2nd Earl Grosvenor, at the coronation of William IV in 1831. Hugh Lupus Grosvenor, born in 1825 at Eaton Hall, inherited immense wealth and used it carefully. He served briefly in Parliament, married into powerful aristocratic networks, and focused his attention on estate management and horse racing rather than politics. His success was measured not in speeches, but in stability. His racehorses won the Derby 4 times. His properties flourished. His discretion earned trust. In 1874, Queen Victoria elevated him to Duke of Westminster, a formal recognition of a reality that already existed. He was one of the wealthiest men in the kingdom. The first Duke commissioned architect Alfred Waterhouse to rebuild Eaton Hall in the Gothic Revival style, creating what was then described as the most ambitious private residence in Britain. When he died in 1899, he left behind not just money, but a blueprint, wealth preserved through restraint. That restraint would not define his grandson. Hugh Richard Arthur Grosvenor, the second Duke of Westminster, known as Bendor, inherited the title in 1902 and lived in sharp contrast to his predecessor. Charismatic, restless, and impulsive, he became infamous for romantic excess and political extremism. He married 4 times, divorced 3, and buried his eldest son at the age of 4. But it was his relationship with Gabrielle Coco Chanel that cemented his notoriety. Their affair, beginning in the 1920s, fused aristocratic wealth with modern celebrity. The Duke financed Chanel's lifestyle, gifted her jewels and art, and purchased property for her in London and the south of France. Her designs absorbed the textures of his world, tweeds, hunting fabrics, masculine tailoring, and transformed them into fashion. Yet beneath the romance lay darker impulses. The Duke was an outspoken anti-Semite and played a role in the political destruction of his own brother-in-law by exposing his homosexuality to King George V. During the Second World War, his sympathies drifted dangerously close to collaboration. Through Chanel, he allegedly supported efforts to broker a peace agreement between Britain and Nazi Germany, an operation that ultimately failed. When the second Duke died in 1953, he left behind scandal, record inheritance taxes, and no male heir. Critically, in his last will dated November 1952, Bendor structured the estate so that his direct survivors would not inherit his capital as personal wealth. Instead, it would be held in trusts, a decision that would shape the family's fortune for generations. The title passed sideways through the family tree, a quiet correction after decades of excess. The area of Pimlico, which the family had developed, was sold that same year. Hugh Richard Louis Grosvenor was born on January 29, 1991, in London, into a dynasty newly aware of its vulnerabilities. He was the 3rd child and only son of Gerald Grosvenor, 6th Duke of Westminster, and his wife Natalia Phillips, a descendant of Russian author Alexander Pushkin and the Romanov imperial family, specifically Nicholas I of Russia. His baptism on June 23, 1991, was attended by Charles, Prince of Wales, who became one of his godparents. Hugh has 3 sisters, Lady Tamara van Kootsum, Lady Edwina Grosvenor, a goddaughter of the late Diana, Princess of Wales, and Lady Viola Grosvenor, who married Angus Roberts of the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards in 2022. His father, Gerald, worked deliberately to professionalize the family empire. Wealth was placed into trusts. Estates became corporations. Visibility was minimized. Gerald himself was a reluctant billionaire who once said, "Given the choice, I would rather not have been born wealthy, but I never think of giving up. I can't sell. It does not belong to me." He served in the Territorial Army, rising to the rank of Major General by 2004, and was patron of over 150 charities. His advice to aspiring entrepreneurs was characteristically blunt. Make sure they have an ancestor who was a very close friend of William the Conqueror. Unlike previous heirs, Hugh attended a local state primary school, Moston House School near Chester, before moving into private education at Ellesmere College in Shropshire. He studied countryside management at Newcastle University and worked in estate administration at Wheatsheaf Group, a food and agriculture investment business owned by the Grosvenor Group. He then became an account manager at BioBean, a sustainability company that turns coffee waste into bioproducts such as logs and biofuel. He lived, briefly, as something close to ordinary. That ended overnight in 2016. At 25, Hugh became the 7th Duke of Westminster and one of the richest men in Britain. His inheritance, structured through trusts, an arrangement pioneered by his grandfather Bendor, avoided inheritance tax. a legal framework that reignited debates about aristocratic privilege and inequality. The Duke is a beneficial owner and chair of trustees, but not the legal owner of the wealth, estimated at £9 billion in 2016. By 2025, his net worth was estimated at nearly £10 billion, placing him 14th on the Sunday Times Rich list. The press labelled him Britain's most eligible bachelor. He responded by withdrawing further. As chair of the Grosvenor Group, Hugh oversees a real estate empire spanning Europe, Asia, and North America. The company operates in 62 international cities, with offices in 14 of them. Holdings include commercial and residential properties across London, Liverpool, Vancouver, Australia, California, Singapore, Tokyo, Stockholm, Lyon, Shanghai, and Beijing. The group also maintains 5 rural estates: Eton in Cheshire, the Ray Forest Estate, covering 39,000 hectares in Sutherland, Scotland, Abbeystead in Lancashire, and La Garganta in Spain, a landscape ranging from 585 to 1,266 metres above sea level, home to rare species, including the lynx and Spanish imperial eagle. Hugh has expanded philanthropic efforts, continuing his father's vision. He chairs both the Grosvenor Trustees and the Westminster Foundation, which represents the charitable interests of the Duke and Grosvenor businesses, focusing on vulnerable children and young people aged 0 to 25. He has donated over £100 million to rehabilitation initiatives for wounded British military veterans through the Defence and National Rehabilitation Centre, a project his father initiated before his death. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Hugh donated £12.5 million to national relief efforts supporting the NHS and £1 million to the University of Oxford for mental health research. He was appointed Deputy Lieutenant of Cheshire in June 2023 in recognition of his support to the county. Power once again moved quietly. In October 2013, while still Earl Grosvenor, Hugh was named godfather to Prince George of Cambridge, son of Prince William. The Grosvenor family's affinity with the royal family stretches back to the reign of Queen Victoria. Hugh shares close friendships with both Prince William and Prince Harry, and is also godfather to Prince Archie. At the coronation of King Charles III in 2023, Hugh was one of the peers carrying the royal standards. In April 2023, Hugh's engagement to Olivia Grace Henson was announced. Henson, born in 1992, is the daughter of Rupert Cornelius Brooke Henson and Caroline Belinda Frisbee. She attended Marlborough College alongside Princess Eugenie. On June 7, 2024, they married at Chester Cathedral in a ceremony attended by royalty and aristocracy. The service was officiated by Tim Stratford, Dean of Chester, with a sermon by Mark Tanner, Bishop of Chester. Prince William served as an usher. As the newlyweds departed, climate activists from Just Stop Oil projected powder paint near the cathedral's entrance, a symbolic collision between ancient wealth and modern scrutiny. In July 2025, the couple welcomed their first child, Lady Cosima Florence Grosvenor, extending a bloodline that has endured for nearly a millennium. Under the arcane tradition of male primogeniture, the dukedom and its associated wealth passed to Hugh over his 2 elder sisters, a practice that remains embedded in aristocratic succession. Today, Hugh walks through rooms lined with works by Rubens and Rembrandt, part of an art collection the family has been acquiring for centuries. He manages 11,000 acres of countryside and 300 acres of London's most valuable real estate. He is godfather to the future King of England. Outside his professional duties, he represents Team GB in Olympic skeet shooting competitions. Yet he also inherits the moral weight of history, a dynasty shaped by strategic marriages, institutional silence, and moments of profound failure. The Grosvenor legacy has never been about visibility. It has been about survival. Through Norman conquest, civil war, industrial revolution, 2 world wars, and the dissolution of the British Empire, the family persisted, not through military valor or political genius, but through land, patience, and the careful architecture of wealth preservation. And in a century increasingly hostile to inherited power, Hugh Grosvenor's challenge is not how to spend billions, but how to justify them, how to preserve a legacy built on patience without becoming its prisoner, how to steward an estate that began with 500 acres of swampland and now spans continents. In dynasties like this, silence is never accidental. It is the mechanism by which power endures.